In world news, the ship carrying the bodies of a US and British journalist killed on April 20th in Misrata reached port in the rebel stronghold of Benghazi on April 21st. Oscar nominee Tim Hetherington and the acclaimed photojournalist Chris Andros died on April 20th while chronicling the gritty violence in the war-torn city of Misrata in Libya. Their agency said 2 other photojournalists were also hurt in this incident. Andros had written an email on April 20th basically stating that everything was fine and stable and he was enjoying his assignment and getting some good photographs. But apparently not, because on that fateful day the journalists were walking the front line area at the end of Tripoli Street on the western edge of Misrata when an RPG exploded behind them, according to a town resident. The group was traveling with a group of rebel fighters at the incident. In U.S. news, on April 28th, dazed Southerners comforted one another and began the process of rebuilding after a barrage of storms claimed nearly 300 lives and reduced once familiar neighborhoods to piles of bricks and lumber. The grim death toll from the 24-hour storm period continued to rise, with 294 counted in only 6 states. Among them were 2 university students in Alabama. Nearly 1 million customers were without electricity. The vast majority of fatalities occurred in Alabama, though, where at least 207 people perished, according to state and local officials. The South endured the second deadliest tornado outbreak in the nation's history since 1950. Weather experts said humidity, cooler temperatures, and vertical wind shear made for a deadly concoction. And for local news, a shopkeeper killed a man that tried to beat him with his own baton early April 30th. The fight started at 2:30 a.m. at a Camden 7-Eleven on Marlton Pike. The police said that Houston Calhoun, 27, came into the store and started arguing with the clerk. The clerk, Felipe Medina, 28, had a baton tucked into the waist of his pants. Calhoun grabbed the baton from Medina and started pummeling him with it. Medina then produced a second weapon, a knife, and stabbed Calhoun. Authorities said Calhoun died of knife wounds 30 minutes later. Camden police said that Medina has been cooperative and no charges have been filed against him at this. And now for a story worth a laugh or two for this ride. Hailing a taxi in New York City is hard enough, what with fighting off other would-be passengers and getting the attention of a swerving speeding cab. At least that's what the father of John Beltinsky, a former taxi driver himself, said when he heard about his son's plan to pay a cab driver $5,000 to bring him and his friend Dan Wubin from the East Coast to the West Coast in only one trip. This trip starting on April 24th. When this trip started, they went through Pennsylvania into Ohio, then on to Chicago, a quick stop in Nebraska to visit Wubin's hometown, and then Colorado, Arizona, and eventually into the big city of California. And an extra report special to this news broadcast. The final launch of the Space Shuttle Endeavour was delayed on April 29th, temporarily putting off what promised to be an emotional moment for the mission's commander. Liftoff, originally scheduled for 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time, was delayed by at least 72 hours due to concerns with the shuttle's heating systems. Commander Mark Kelly's wife, U.S. Representative Gabrielle Giffords, traveled to Florida to watch the shuttle's ascent. President Barack Obama and the first family were also scheduled to be in attendance. It was not immediately clear if Giffords would allow her to remain in Florida during the duration of the flight because a would-be assassin. The Endeavour has logged more than 103 million miles in space, blasting off 24 times, but its 25th would be its last. That is it for the special news report, and good night.